Welcome back, Life Sciences. As I said, that break, all right, you need it. Mammalian tissue is really difficult. Where are we on our chicken wing? Okay, so what we've done is, as I said to you, the skin, epithelial tissue, the fat underneath, the adipose tissue. When I lift up the fat, all right, I've got that areolar connective tissue. And then when I break my leg bone, you know, the wing, the two bones, sometimes I see a little white thing that is a ligament, and then I see that white, smooth layer that is hyaline cartilage. Then I can see the bone. The bone is going to be very obvious for me. And sometimes what I can see is like a red piece of string. That would actually be blood vessel. Now, the most of the chicken is muscle. That is what you're eating. So I want you to see if you can take the muscle and you just gently move your finger down. You're going to see like a white little piece. It's kind of like got a bluey kind of tinge to it. That's going to be the tendon. And you'll see the muscle joins the tendon to it. So pretty much looking at your chicken wing, you can see all of the different, all right, mammalian tissues that are going to be on your chicken wing. Our last tissue that we're going to look at is not connective tissue. Our last connective tissue is going to be the nerve. Now, if you're looking on your chicken wing, it's not always the easiest one to find, but you're looking for a very thin structure that looks like a piece of string. That could be your nerve tissue. All right, so what exactly is a nerve tissue? Now, when we look at the structure, all right, of a nerve is actually a collection of these. This is a neuron. And guys, as I said to you, this blows everything out the water about what we know about cells. From here to here, that is a cell. And it looks very different to what we saw in the beginning when we looked at the concept of what a plant and an animal cell looks like. But remember, structure versus function. When we talk about nervous tissue is sending a message, all right, from the bottom to the top. So that's what this is going to look. It looks like an electrical cord. And here we're going to find a normal cell body, right? So the information, this is called a neuron. Right? A neuron is a single structure, and we put a whole lot of neurons together, and that is where we look at the concept of a nerve. And basically, every single thing in our body, when we spoke about the muscle, I said to you, muscle does its work. Where does the message come from? The brain or the spinal cord, which is the nerve. Where do any kind of information, right? How does my heart know how fast to beat? The brain will tell it. How do I know that I need to breathe? My brain will tell it because that's my smooth muscle, etc. So the brain is going to tell mostly the muscles and other things, right, how to do its work. So you've got the concept of what a cell is, but now we have to transmit a message. Right, and that is how we have the cell has this long extension. Okay, guys, and over here, that's a little bit of fat because it's an insulator. We want the message to go from one to the other. When it comes to this type of mammalian tissue, you need to be able to draw and to label this. It's one of the tissues that is a lot more simpler. It's just a single cell. It's much simpler to be able to draw and to label. And when we look at, you're going to look at this section a lot more when you look at the brain and you look at the spinal cord. But the one thing you do need to see is that there's actually 3 types of neurons. But what we're looking at here is one of the neurons, we say, is a motor neuron. And another of the neurons is a sensory neuron. And you will see they have a slightly different function. And basically what happens is the following. Say, for example, it is cold outside. Your sensory neuron will tell you it's cold. It will go to your brain, right? And the brain will send a message back, okay, you're cold, right, let's start to shiver. All right, what does I start to shiver? I got goosebumps, right, my muscles, my hair stand on end. So I sense something and then I do something about it. Okay, so when it comes to the nerves, that is basically what they're going to do. So we have now looked at all the different kinds of mammalian tissues. And as I said to you, the most difficult part is actually trying to recognize, when you're given a diagram, what tissue am I looking at? Because unfortunately, if you can't recognize the tissue, you're going to have a problem answering the questions that are going to follow it. Okay, so what kind of questions can we ask on this section? Let's start. Now, the one question that I have here is of all of the different, all right, tissues together, and it's an easy question, it's a simple question. It says, study the diagrams below of animal tissue and answer the questions that follow. Now, as I said to you, that is quite a nice one, because what it wants you to do is write down the letter and the number of the tissue that. Right, so you need to be able usually to recognize it, know its function, and maybe look at, all right, its structure. So here are the there's 4 questions here, and for each of them, let's go back, very important, the letter and the number. All right, each one of them might have one or the other. Okay, so guys, let's start. Forms bones making up the skeleton of the mammal. Okay, so if we have a look over here, forms the bones making up the skeleton of the mammal. I'm actually going to say over here, bone is the most recognizable one, remember, because it's got those lovely little circles. Okay, so letter, all right, would be B, and the number, it is diagram number. Okay, what would be that number? Number 4. There's my next one. Carries impulses from the central nervous system to the effectors, muscles or glands. All right, so guys, carries impulses from the central nervous system. I know that's nerve. And which diagram is that going to be? There's only one label, so I know it's going to be label number I. Okay, number C is responsible for voluntary movement. So if I'm going to do voluntary movement, which muscle is going to make sure that I have voluntary movement? It is going to be, all right, structure number 3. So let's write it over here. That is going to be skeletal muscle. Now the last one contains microscopic hair-like projections lining the nasal cavities and the trachea. That leaves me with 2. All right, so the number there is going to be number 2. And I can put a letter here that's going to be number A. The reason being that is pointing to the cilia. This is a nice, easy question. It's usually going to be found in section A, all right, of your exam. Remember, your section A is usually 50 marks, and it's the nice, easier questions that you will be able to answer. Okay, let's go into a slightly more challenging question. It says, study the diagrams below of animal tissue. It does tell you that it's mammalian tissue, and answer the questions that follow. Now you've got 2 structures here, an A and a B, and from each of them there's obviously we need to understand. So number A, we're going to, in our head already, what are we starting to say to ourselves? Okay, this is a nerve cell, and then I'm looking at all these different ones in B, and I'm looking at the word tissue, and I'm thinking, okay, this could be blood. So what kind of questions that we can ask? Exactly that. What is A and what is B? Now remember They asked you for the tissue. They didn't ask you for the cell. They're very specific about the tissue. So when I identify A and B, what tissue is it? Okay, so A is going to be nervous tissue. All right, and what is B going to be? B is going to be blood tissue, because that's what they asked us, the tissue that each of them is going to be. Now we have to provide labels for the structures 1 to 6. So as I said to you, one of the things we usually have to be able to do is to label the structure. So number 1 is a neuron. Well, number A is a neuron, all right? Number 1 are the dendrites, because I've learned this. So guys, now you see 6 marks here, and if you haven't studied this problem properly, all right, you cell nucleus or just nucleus. 3 is pointing to this over here, which is the axon. 4 is the cell around there, and those are your Schwann cells. 5 is your node of Ranvier. All right, I'm going to go over here. And 6 is your terminal end plates. How's that? Nice, easy marks, because that's what they have told me. Guys, I know our time, unfortunately, now has run out. So if you're going to go and get past papers, go and get revision papers, right? Know what the cell does, know what the blood. The most difficult part of the mammalian tissue, it's all the diagrams. Know the diagrams. Can I see what they look like? What is their function, right? And if I can relate their structure to the function. I'm afraid that's all we're going to have time for. Until next time, see you. Cherry bye.